Thank you. So let us just wait for a few minutes. Yes, somebody else has also joined.
Yes, sir.
Name is not mentioned there. Two persons have joined. So good afternoon to all of you. Today we shall discuss about the Unit 8, that is role of Cabinet Secretariat and Prime Minister's office in policy making. So now public administration cannot exist in a policy vacuum. Uh, that means public administration is meaningful only when there is concrete policy statement. Policy vacuum means uh, emptiness associated with policy. That means there is no policy. If there is no policy, so policy vacuum implies if there is no policy. So if there is no policy, obviously action or administration cannot be possible. That is why this is the fundamental truth about public administration and or the interconnection between administration and policy. So policy automatically brings administration into action, and administration also correspondingly contributes to the framing or formulation of policy. Now, in a parliamentary democracy, policy making is the major function of the political executive. You know, the executive can be classified into political and also administrative. Political executive, generally, we mean the prime minister, the council of ministers, the cabinet. So, these are generally known as the political executive. And on the administration side, here we can say that those who are directly involved in the implementation of policy, the executive or the bureaucracy, so they are directly responsible for the implementation of the policies. Now, here in this connection, first of all, we shall discuss about or we shall analyze about the role of the cabinet
Your voice
secretariat
is call. Alert.
in
Mismatch visible. You need to
policy
switch your focus.
making. So here the cabinet secretariat has a very important place in the central administration. We know cabinet secretariat obviously plays a very important role in connection with policy formulation as well as policy implementation. And secretariat, the cabinet secretariat is under the direct supervision of the prime minister because the prime minister happens to be the head of the secretariat in the cabinet secretariat, and cabinet secretary happens to be the executive head or the administrative head. So together they are responsible for the implementation as well as the execution of policies which are undertaken within the country or within India. Now, so the role of the cabinet secretary, who is also the ex officio chairperson or chairman of the Civil Services Board. And in the Government of India, Allocation of Business Rules 1961, Cabinet Secretariat finds a place in the first schedule to the rules. So this is about this description is about the statutory position that the Cabinet Secretariat enjoys, and its importance is accordingly defined in those rules. So here, the subjects which are allotted to the Cabinet Secretariat, they fall into these categories: your secretarial assistance to the Cabinet and Cabinet committees, and also the implementation of the rules of business. So what will be conducted or what will be performed, what will be done by the Cabinet Secretariat in matters of policy, that is also an important uh, consideration in matters of public administration. So we have to remember that the Cabinet Secretariat is responsible for the administration of the Government of India, Transaction of Business Rules 1961, and the Government of India Allocation of Business Rules 1961. So these are the rules which very effectively, very succinctly deal with the role and functioning of the Cabinet Secretariat in our country. And so the facilitating smooth transaction of business in ministries or departments of the government. Because here, in matters of policy implementation, we know that the different ministries or departments of the government, they are involved in the matters of public policy implementation, formulation as well. So here, the cabinet secretariat ensures that the president, the vice president, the ministers, because here they can come in the capacity of the executive. So president, we know, he is known as the executive head of the union. Similarly, vice president is the next functionary in that order, and ministers, or particularly the council of ministers, that is known as your council of ministers, they are together known as the executive, and they are also, sorry for the disturbance. So uh, these functionaries or these institutions, these offices, they are very instrumental in matters of the formulation as well as execution of public policies. And as the head of the state, because president we know is generally known as the head of the state or head of the executive also. So these functionaries, they must be properly cognizant of the policies which have been framed by the different ministries or the departments. So here the uh, let us now focus on the support to cabinet committees. So here the secretarial assistance provided by the cabinet secretariat to the cabinet and cabinet committees. These are here the something about the secretarial assistance. That means the official assistance in matters of policy formulation and execution are actually provided by the different committees. And here, convening of the meetings of the cabinet on the orders of the prime minister. So this is one step. Another step is preparation and circulation of the agenda. So agenda means there is a prior preparation regarding the business or regarding the operation or the functions that are to be undertaken within the subcommittee. So that is preparation and circulation of the agenda. It will be prepared and also it will be circulated among the different stakeholders which will participate in the process of that meeting. And circulation of papers related to the cases on the agenda, So all the relevant papers they will be also circulated properly before the start of the meeting. Then there is preparation of a record of discussions taken. So what was decided that is also recorded. A record in the form of the concrete decisions which were undertaken that must be there. And circulation of the record after obtaining approval of the Prime Minister. So after the record is prepared, then it will be circulated among the different committees or different ministries, different departments, and that is possible only after obtaining the approval of the Prime Minister. Without the approval of the Prime Minister, it will not be possible. Then, keeping a watch on the implementation of the decisions taken by the cabinet. That means whenever a decision is taken by the cabinet, it is also to be very keenly watched in which manner that action or that decision is going to be implemented. So now here promotion of interministerial coordination. Why we are discussing about the interministerial coordination? The reason is that different ministries or departments within the government or within the state are involved directly and also indirectly involved in the process of policy formulation as well as execution. So, in this connection, this interministerial coordination, that means all the ministries must coordinate properly whenever policies are formulated or policies are implemented. If there is no coordination, because if there is no coordination, then successful implementation of the policy or successful formulation of the policy, execution of the policy cannot be possible. There is no question that any single ministry or any single department can be enough to translate all the policies into action. So the interministerial cooperation is involved. They often seek the assistance of the cabinet secretariat. So this coordination is also ensured by the cabinet secretariat. Um, Coordination among the different ministries and the meetings of the committee of secretaries. So that coordination is also possible or takes place through the committee of secretaries. There is a committee of secretaries. We know the secretary is the administrative head of every ministry. We know for administrative convenience in the government of India, or even for that matter, also within the states, there are different departments or ministries, and the ministry is headed by a political head, that is the minister. So, for example, let us assume the case of Home Ministry. So, Home Ministry is headed politically headed by a Home Minister and administratively headed by a secretary. Similarly, there are various departments under Government of India or Government of any state. There is Home, Finance, Defense, Foreign Affairs, etc., etc. So all these ministries they are headed by the ministers politically and the secretaries administratively. So the administrative side is headed by the secretary, who happens to be a senior most Indian administrative officer or Indian civil service officer. So this committee of secretaries plays a pivotal role. Committee of secretary, that means a committee is constituted by taking the different secretaries of different departments who will be directly or indirectly involved in the process of policy formulation as well as execution. So the meetings are held under the chairmanship of the cabinet secretary. So whenever the cabinet secretariat will sit for a meeting, it will generally or usually be headed by the cabinet secretary. And we know the cabinet secretary happens to be the boss of the civil service in the country. He is the boss of the civil service in the country, as the chief secretary happens to be the boss in case of the state administration. Okay, so the cabinet secretary generally presides over the committees of secretaries. So whenever the committees of the secretaries will meet for certain purpose or for certain agenda on some agenda, so cabinet secretary will preside over it, and the uh, uh, and also he attends all the meetings of the cabinet and its committees. He means the cabinet secretary. He is also responsible for preparing the agenda, priority of items, and allocation of subjects to cabinet committees on the direction of the prime minister. So, which matter will be assigned to which ministry or which department or to which secretary, it is to be distributed by the cabinet secretary, obtaining the approval of the prime minister. Because prime minister happens to be the most important functionary within this system. So the cabinet secretary therefore plays a very significant role in policy apparatus. That means here we know political bosses or political persons, they play the first or the introductory initial responsible role in matters of policy formulation, which of course becomes possible or which of course takes place with the active help of the administrative officials. And without the help of those administrative officials, these political persons are also in a very uh, problematic situation. They, on their own, cannot do anything. Okay, it is not that we are stating about or we are discussing about their incompetence. It's not like that. Rather, the system has been so designed or the system has been so patterned, so practiced down these years that perfect coordination or proper coordination in between the political boss and the administrative officials is quite essential in matters of successful administration. So, Cabinet Secretariat has established itself over the years as a significant institution in the policy making process. That means policy making in the country cannot be complete without the involvement of the cabinet secretariat or the cabinet secretary. So, the Administrative Reforms Commission of 1966 gave its opinion or its suggestions, recommendations on the cabinet secretariat. Those recommendations are that every subcommittee of the cabinet should be supported by a committee of secretaries. So there is subcommittee of cabinet. The cabinet then it will be having different subcommittees to address different issues. And those subcommittees they should be supported by a committee of secretaries. All those subcommittees they will be assisted by the committee of secretaries. That means there will be a body of secretaries in which they will be drawn from different departments and they will transact the business for the successful formulation as well as implementation of the policies or public policy. Then the commission also reported that, also recommended that the role of the cabinet secretary should be limited to that of coordination. That means the cabinet secretary will only coordinate the business. Coordination. Okay. For example, as the entire administration is coordinated by the chief minister at the state level, or even further down, we can say chief secretary administratively. Similarly, the cabinet secretary is also the chief coordinator. So he will coordinate the entire business of the cabinet as well as the government. The cabinet secretary should also act as the principal staff advisor to the prime minister. Principal staff advisor to the prime minister and the cabinet committee on important policy matters. So he is definitely known as the principal staff advisor to the prime minister. The department of personnel should be headed by a secretary who should work under the general guidance of the cabinet secretary. So personnel, because personnel is also one of the important aspects, and this Ministry of Personnel deals with the different categories of functionaries who will be vested with the responsibilities in different capacities in different departments or different ministries of the government. That
Jaldi.
is so personnel the Ministry of Personnel controls the deployment of officials, deployment of functionaries in different ministries or different departments. Another suggestion was that the cabinet secretary should have a tenure of at least 3 years. So this is generally for the smooth conduct of business because if we are not ensuring stable tenure for a functionary, then there will not be continuity in the matters of administration and coherence in the matters of administration. So, in order to strike continuity and coherence in administration, it is always desirable that a senior functionary like the cabinet secretary must have, must enjoy a stable tenure. And opinions have also differed whether it should be a 2 year tenure or a 3 year tenure. These opinions differ, but generally, and also as far as the present context or present moment is concerned, the majority opinion has been in favor of a 3 year tenure. ତେଣୁ 3 ବର୍ଷ ହେଲେ କଣ ନା ଗୋଟେ ଲୋକକୁ କିଛି ଗୋଟେ ଅ, ଲମ୍ବା ସମୟ ମିଳିଲା ଯାହା ଫଳରେ କି ସେ ତାର ଏନର୍ଜି ତାର ଇଣ୍ଟେଲିଜେନ୍ସ ତାର କ୍ୟାପାବିଲିଟି ୟୁଟିଲାଇଜ କରିକି ହୁଏତ କିଛିଟା କରିପାରିବେ କାହିଁକି ନା ହି ଇଜ ଦ ଲିଡର ତେଣୁ କ୍ୟାବିନେଟ ସେକ୍ରେଟାରିଏଟ ର ଯେହେତୁ ସେ ହଉଛନ୍ତି ଲିଡର ତେଣୁ ଜଣେ ଲିଡର ସେଇଭଳି କ୍ୟାପେବଲ ଲିଡର ଯିଏ ହେଇଥିବ ତା ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟିଏ ସ୍ଥିର ସମୟ ଦରକାର ଯାହା ଭିତରେ କି ସେ କିଛିଟା କରିପାରିବେ and this was on the basis of the recommendations of the Administrative Reforms Commission, which was constituted in 1966. So, looking at the various functions and role of the Cabinet Secretariat, it should be noted that it is essentially a staff agency for providing assistance and it doesn't have a major role in policy formulation. So cabinet secretariat works as a staff agency. In public administration, I suppose, I presume, uh, mm, perhaps all of you might have been acquainted with this concept of line and staff. So, line and staff, line agency stands for the role of leadership, decision making, and issuing final orders, final decision. Staff agency is to carry out what the line agency instructs or directs to the staff agency. So line agency are the leaders, and staff agency are their, we can say, subordinates. And again, there is also a principle in public administration that a line agency is not a line agency permanently, and a staff agency is not a staff agency permanently. So, a line agency can also be a staff agency depending on the time, also depending on the situation, depending on the function. So also a staff agency can also function as a staff agency sometime, and also it may function as a line agency some other time. So the real role will vary depending on the time and also the nature of the tasks to be performed. Now, we should also be aware of the role of the Prime Minister's office in policy making. Role of the Prime Minister's office. So, Prime Minister's office and Cabinet Secretariat, they are totally different from each other. Now, the Prime Minister's office or the Prime Minister of India is the head of the union government. So, government head of the government is Prime Minister, and head of the state is the President. This is common knowledge to uh, known to everybody. Now, the Prime Minister is assisted in this task by his Council of Ministers, comprising cabinet ministers, ministers of state with independent charge, ministers of state cab- uh, uh, with cabinet ministers, and deputy. So, this body is together known as the Council of Ministers. Council of Ministers is constituted by taking the Prime Minister as the leader. Then the Prime Minister is assisted by a body of senior ministers. They are known as cabinet ministers. Below the cabinet ministers, there are ministers of state with independent charge. Then there is also minister of state with no independent charge. Those who do not have independent charge, they are further answerable or they are further accountable to the cabinet minister within the department, within the ministry concerned. And then come the deputy ministers. So, cabinet minister, ministers of state, deputy ministers. This is the normal three-tier ranking of the political officials who constitute what is known as the Council of Ministers, and the Prime Minister is the leader of the Council of Ministers. So, as the head of the Council of Ministers, the Prime Minister observes the work of all the ministries without the knowledge, without the information of the Prime Minister. No work in any other department or ministry can be performed. So, as the head of the government, as the head of the administration, he or she must be completely informed, completely cognizant about the nature of administration, what is going on within the country. He presides over the cabinet meetings. The Prime Minister also presides over the cabinet meetings. The Union Cabinet functions on the principle of collective responsibility that we have, that we usually know from our early stage of studentship. That cabinet, or even the Council of Ministers, they always follow this principle. They always function on the principle of what is known as collective responsibility. And there is also mention about another type of responsibility which is known as individual responsibility. So everybody within the cabinet or within the council of ministers must thoroughly realize the importance of what is known as collective responsibility and individual responsibility. So collectively they will stand together, they will swim or sink together, and individually also everybody is accountable or answerable for what goes on within his or her ministry or department. So, as the head of the Council of Ministers, the Prime Minister oversees the work of all the ministries, and the Union Cabinet functions on the principle of collective responsibility. The Prime Minister is also chairman of the Planning Commission of India. Of course, Planning Commission has now been replaced by another body that we know as Niti Aayog. So it has been rechristened or a new body has been created in its place. But when the Planning Commission was there, the Prime Minister was the chairperson of the Planning Commission. And we know Planning Commission happened to be the highest policy making body in the country. So the Prime Minister's office includes different units, that is your anti-corruption unit and the public wing dealing with the grievances, etc., etc. But here, the Prime Minister's office is also controlled by a principal secretary to the Prime Minister. And I suppose you all must be knowing that the principal secretary to the present Prime Minister is one happens to be from Odisha. Okay, so who is he? Anyone? The principal secretary to the present Prime Minister. Who is he? Anybody? Either Shushobha or Vijayalakshmi or Shasadhar or Shankar.
So I can't remember it.
He is Mr. Pramod Misra from
Yes,
Sambalpur.
yes, sir. Okay.
He is Mr. Pramod Misra. So he is the principal secretary to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Okay. So uh, this is the principal secretary to the Prime Minister and the PMO or Prime Minister's office. Prime Minister's office includes some units, that is your anti-corruption unit and also the public wing, which are there, which have been constituted for the smooth implementation of the different policies which are framed by the the erstwhile Planning Commission or the present Niti Aayog. So Prime Minister has traditionally been the minister in charge of the departments of space, atomic energy, Ministry of Personnel, public grievances and pensions. Generally, these portfolios are kept under the Prime Minister because these portfolios happen to be quite important. Okay, portfolios like space, Department of Space, atomic energy, Ministry of Personnel, public grievances and pensions. So these are generally kept under the supervision or control of the Prime Minister. Since the Prime Minister is chairman of the Planning Commission, relevant files are forwarded to the PMO for comments and clearance. And the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund or the National Defense Fund are operated directly from the PMO. So this is the importance of the PMO. That means Prime Minister's office exercises uh, highest control over the matters of public policy formulation and also in matters of its execution. Now, some of the important matters that require the Prime Minister's personal attention. So, which are the matters that need the personal attention of the Prime Minister? They are, say, for example, important defense related issues because we also know that the country declares or the government comes out with the defense policy of the country. Every year we know there is the preparation or presentation of the defense budget, and we also know that our country is located in a globally strategic position, a globally and strategically important position, and also it plays a very determining and decisive role in international politics. So, Defense related issues or defense related matters are quite important because we have to deal with our adversaries like China, Pakistan, which are very potential rivals. And if we need to be self reliant, if we need to breathe comfortably at our home, then obviously we will have to be very much well prepared in matters of defense. So this is defense related issues are quite important and they are under the direct supervision of the Prime Minister's office. There is also your decorations, both civilian and defense, where presidential approval is required. Decorations, for example, your Bharat Ratna or even civilian decorations like your Ashok Chakra, Paramvir Chakra, etc., etc. All important policy issues, all important policy issues. Policies are variegated in nature. Policies, for example, agricultural policy, industrial policy, education policy, health policy, defense policy, etc., etc. That is why all important policy issues are also under the direct supervision or control of the PMO or the Prime Minister. Proposals for appointment of Indian heads of missions. This is something regarding foreign relations. So the country also needs a very robust foreign relationship with the other countries. Unless we maintain a healthy and supportive foreign relationship, external relationship, then our country cannot be also comfortable or self-reliant in matters of its own stability, administration, and also uh, related, we can say, uh, overall stability of the country. So, all important decisions relating to the cabinet secretariat, they also come under the direct supervision and control of the prime minister or prime minister's office. Then, appointment to the state administrative tribunals, all policy matters relating to the administration of civil services, special packages announced by the Prime Minister for states, all judicial appointments for which President's approval is reserved. So all these matters, you see, from the examination of these matters, of these issues, we can very well come to this conclusion that the Prime Minister's office, the Prime Minister, or the Cabinet Secretariat, all these agencies, all these uh, offices play a very vital role in matters of policy formulation in the country. And there is a detailed description of the different distribution of responsibilities in the PMO, which is there in the study material provided by the IGNOU, and you can also go through it. So that is now. So the advisory committee or councils to the prime minister. So in matters of policy formulation, there are also advices or supports, assistance given by some other subordinate officials or subordinate offices to the prime minister. And what is the nature of that type of assistance can also help us in understanding the nature of policy making in the country in a detailed manner. So here, scientific advisory council to the prime minister. So this is in matters of, we can say, it is a 28-member scientific advisory council to the prime minister headed by chemical scientist. It is something old edition. That is why the name is also uh, the name of a very senior and also erstwhile advisor, and he was CNR Rao, who is not now. But similarly, we know there is always a scientific advisory council. That means, say for example, very recently we successfully undertook the Chandrayaan mission. So that is also the contribution of the Scientific Advisory Council. So, Prime Minister will consult with the Scientific Advisory Council, and the Scientific Advisory Council will keep the Prime Minister informed of all the developments, all the research potential, all the future activities to be undertaken by the council in the future. Okay, for example, we have already undertaken the moon mission. Now there is also plan for your Mongol mission, solar mission. So there are so many uh, other missions also which are waiting in the wings, which are waiting in the wings. And this is definitely an important business of the country because from this you create the soft power of the state. You are able to enhance or increase the prestige of the country in the international arena. Okay, so Chandrayaan mission successful. Chandrayaan mission has definitely added to the credit of the country or to the prestige of the country. Okay, so that is why this is one important area which the Prime Minister pays sufficient importance to, and also the Council always uh, helps the Prime Minister in informing properly and also receiving the adequate instructions from the Prime Minister in that regard. Advisory group on foreign affairs. For example, we know foreign policy of a country. Foreign policy of a country is also very important. No country can ever afford to ignore its foreign policy. Be it America, the most developed country in the world, like America or France or Britain or Germany or China, or even the other countries, like we can say the whether it is the developed country or developing or underdeveloped, every country needs a very supportive, very strong, very successful foreign policy because this foreign policy will automatically add to your success and also your stability in the international arena. So, advisory group on foreign affairs to the Prime Minister keeps the Prime Minister informed of all the issues. What is happening? Say, for example, what is the relationship between India and America? If it has come down, then how it can go up or how it can be improved? Because foreign policy of a country is not always, or it is not a smooth passage. It goes through different ups and downs. Sometimes you can say your relationship with another country is smooth, but after some days or years or months, again you will find some other issues have vitiated that relationship, as a result of which you will find that the relationship between the two countries is not that cordial, cooperative. Okay, recently you might have seen that India and America they describe themselves as the natural allies or democratic friends, but in matters of this a person from that Punjab whose death is attributed to some Indian agents, Mr. Pannun, who was killed in Canada, and his death also created a furor in the Indo-Canadian relationship as well as also Indo-American relationship because that Pannun enjoyed citizenship of Canada and citizenship of America. So Canada and America they accused India that it is because of the support provided by the government of India that the agents could successfully assassinate or successfully kill Pannun. Okay, Gur Patwan Singh Panmun or something like that. His name is, and he is by India. He is identified as an active member of the this it's six terrorist organization. The six terrorist organization, but these countries they are very protective about him because he was enjoying citizenship in those countries. So we know America is very well establishing a very positive, cordial, friendly relationship with India, but at the same time, it is also criticizing India for this type of plot, which was behind the killing of persons like Ponun. That means these issues or these uh, um, issues can bring down the foreign relationship to a significant extent, or the foreign relationship can nosedive in case on the basis of certain issues, which must be very carefully monitored, very carefully also. The officials should take note of all these things. Then Economic Advisory Council is also there to advise the minister in matters of economic administration or financial administration of the country. Economic Advisory Council in matters of all matters of we can say policy, taxation policy, fiscal policy, etc., etc. It is the Economic Advisory Council which very effectively, very successfully advises the Prime Minister. So, in matters of finance or in matters of we can say control of finance, here the Economic Advisory Council advises the Prime Minister, advises the Cabinet Secretariat, advises the Cabinet on the policies which need to be adopted in connection with the financial stability of the country. Then there is also the Trade and Economic Relations Committee. This Trade and Economic Commissions Economic Relations Committee, that is also an important committee which advises the Prime Minister, the Council of Ministers, the Cabinet regarding the trade and economic relationship with the other countries, both domestic as well as international. So, domestic trade relationship and also international trade relationship in the country, because that is a very uh, important part of the we can say economic administration of the country. Nowadays, if a country is having a very robust international trade relationship with many other countries, then it can earn very handsomely. It can accumulate very good reserve of foreign exchange, which can be considered as an important component of what is known as the we can say import needs of the country, because foreign exchange reserve is another indicator of the economic health of the country. If your foreign exchange reserve is very comfortable, very significant, then obviously your economy is stable and you can breathe comfortably. You can stay comfortably that yes, we can meet our input needs for a longer period so that your uh, economic administration will not be in trouble. Economic administration in the country or financial administration in the country will not face any trouble. So here, this the committee is this committee means the Trade and Economic Relations Committee. These committees, which keep advising the Prime Minister, are also composed in different manners, and the compositions have been described in the study material, which can be gone through by you all. And in all these committees, the Prime Minister happens to be the chairperson. So, in all these committees, whether it is the Trade and Economic Relations Committee, or the Energy Coordination Committee, or the Atomic Energy Commission, so in all these important bodies, the Prime Minister happens to be the chairperson. From this, you can very well come to this conclusion that the Prime Minister plays a very pivotal role in matters of policy formulation in all respects of the country, whether it is defense policy, agricultural policy, or foreign policy, or whatever it is. In all matters of policy, the Prime Minister plays a very pivotal role, very important role. So, there is also your chairman, railway board, secretaries of departments of shipping, department of road transport and highways, department of civil aviation, ministry of power, ministry of environment and forests, ministry of labor are all special invitees. That is within the uh, that is the nature of, we can say, task force on petroleum, chemicals and petrochemicals. That means here you see we cannot go deeper into the details, but thing is that there are various committees constituted, and all these committees, they deal with the most important aspects of the policies related to those departments or committees or ministries. And all these policies must be approved or must be implemented in the knowledge of the Prime Minister, in the knowledge of the PMO. So now there are also some other commissions. For example, your investment commission, which deals with the investment potential of the country. National Knowledge Commission, because Knowledge Commission deals with the accumulation as well as dissemination of knowledge in the country. And why this has become important? Because nowadays there is a concept which is known as knowledge economy. That means knowledge is also a very potential source of improving the economy of a country. For example, in India, we have a very successful youth mass, a very strong, or we can say a significant size of the youth mass who are well qualified in the IT sector, information technology sector, and they are working in different developed countries of the world. So Indian software professionals or Indian IT professionals, information technology of the professionals, they are not only working in India, but also they are working abroad, thereby contributing to the richness of knowledge in the country, richness of the, how we can say, manpower. If the manpower is educated, manpower is rich, obviously the country can derive very positive, very attractive dividend, demographic dividend. ଯଦି ଆମର ଦେଶର ଜନଶକ୍ତି ବେଶ ଶିକ୍ଷିତ, ବେଶ ଯୋଉଟାକୁ କୁହାଯାଏ ସ୍କିଲ୍ଡ, କୁଶଳ, କୁଶଳୀ, ତାହେଲେ ସେଇଟା କଣ ହୁଏ ନା ଅଟୋମେଟିକାଲି ଦେଶର ଆର୍ଥିକ ଅବସ୍ଥାକୁ ସୁଧାରିବାରେ ବି ବହୁତ ସହାୟକ ହୋଇଥାଏ। ଯେମିତି ମୁଁ କହିଲି ଆଇଟି ପ୍ରଫେସନାଲ୍ସ ଆମର ଇଣ୍ଡିଆରେ ରହିକି କାମ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ଆଉ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ଫରେନ୍ କମ୍ପାନୀ ପାଇଁ ବି ରହିକି ଗୁଡେ କାମ କରୁଛନ୍ତି। ଆମେ ଜାଣିଛେ ପର୍ସନ୍ସ ଲାଇକ୍ ସତ୍ୟ ନାଡେଲା, Sundar Pichai, and many other persons who are also uh, known as PIOs. persons of Indian origin, but they are working in different foreign countries and heading the world's most prestigious offices or organizations. So this is not only adding to the prestige of the country, but also contributing to the economic condition of the country or economic betterment of the country. Okay, because those persons they are also earning something or earning their by selling their knowledge, by investing their knowledge, by utilizing their knowledge, they are also getting remunerated, and their remuneration is, we can say, that is diverted or remitted to the country of origin. So when that is remitted to the country of origin, obviously it is contributing to the economic health of the country. Similarly, there are many other, or we can say, national common minimum program, or even so. There are some concrete examples which have been cited in your study material. Those study material in the nature of, for example, how the Prime Minister's office intervenes in different situations for making fruitful and timely interventions in matters of administration. ତେଣୁ ପଲିସିଟାକୁ କିଭଳି ସୁଚାରୁ ରୂପେ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକାରୀ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ବା ପଲିସିର ସଫଳ ରୂପାୟନ ପାଇଁ ଅନେକ ସମୟରେ କେମିତି ପ୍ରାଇମ ମିନିଷ୍ଟର୍ସ ଅଫିସ ହଉ, କ୍ୟାବିନେଟ ହଉ ବା କ୍ୟାବିନେଟ ସେକ୍ରେଟାରିଏଟ ହଉ, ଏମାନେ କିଭଳି ଅତି ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଭୂମିକା ନିର୍ବାହ କରିଛନ୍ତି ତାର ଉଦାହରଣ ମଧ୍ୟ ବହିରେ ଦିଆଯାଇଛି କେସ୍ 1 କେସ୍ 2 ପରେ। ସେ ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ସିଚୁଏସନ ବା ସେ ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ କେସ୍ ଯୋଉଥିରୁ କି ଆମେ କିଛିଟା ଧାରଣା କରିପାରିବା ଯେ how actually policies are quite important and policies are also being monitored properly for the development of the country, for the development of the society. And here there are some criticisms also. PMO or Prime Minister's office is accused of overstepping or interfering, which is quite natural. Okay, because Prime Minister's office has the power to interfere in all matters of administration, all matters of administration. Okay, so that is why this is criticized as overstepping or undue interference. But this is a pattern which is deeply entrenched in our country. We cannot easily wish it away. We cannot easily ignore it because when a tradition becomes deeply rooted within the country, it is very difficult to eradicate, very difficult to remove that practice. So PMO's dominance will continue for how long we cannot predict or we cannot say. So role of the Prime Minister in policy making has been quite decisive, quite important, and we cannot uh, whisk away or we cannot ignore the role of the Prime Minister or the Prime Minister's office in matters of policy formulation and also policy execution. Now, the next unit deals with the role of civil society organizations in policy making. So, apart from the role of the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister's office, the Cabinet, and the Cabinet Secretariat, now we shall see that civil society organizations also play some decisive role in matters of public policy making and also public policy execution. Okay, so what are the civil society organizations? There are varieties of organizations which have been created by the persons in their private capacity in order to address different issues in which the life of the people is impacted. Okay, So these organizations, they are formulated by the voluntary cooperation of the people or the persons drawn from different capacities uh, in order to uh, assist or in order to help the society, the people in different ways or different occasions. Now, let me ask you one thing. Do you want a break for some minutes? I'm asking all the one, two, three, four participants, or perhaps five participants. Would you like to take a break or we shall continue? Should we take a break or continue?
Continue, sir.
Okay? Yes, I
Yes,
could
sir.
not hear.
Please continue.
Should we continue or take a break?
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Now, I am unable to hear you properly.
Continue the class, sir.
Okay, okay. So, here, yes, about the policy system is incomplete without consideration of the need for and contribution of civil society groups that work for the welfare and sustenance of the interests of the marginalized strata of society. Generally, these civil society organizations, they are popularly known as the third sector. How this is known as the third sector? Because we know there is one known as public sector. There is another which is known as the private sector. And these civil society organizations, they are known as the third sector. Public sector means something which is managed at the state level or it is under the direct control and supervision of the state, that is public sector. Private sector is something which relates to the different private businesses or private entrepreneurs. ଯେମିତିକି ଗୋଟେ କେସରେ ଆମେ ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ଦେଇଦେଲେ ହବ କଣ ନା ପବ୍ଲିକ ସେକ୍ଟରରେ ଷ୍ଟିଲ୍ ପ୍ଲାଣ୍ଟ ହଉଛି ଆମର ରାଉରକେଲା ଷ୍ଟିଲ୍ ପ୍ଲାଣ୍ଟ, ପ୍ରାଇଭେଟ ସେକ୍ଟରରେ ଷ୍ଟିଲ୍ ପ୍ଲାଣ୍ଟ ହଉଛି ଟାଟା ଆଇରନ୍ ଆଣ୍ଡ ଷ୍ଟିଲ୍ ବା ମିତ୍ତଲ ଷ୍ଟିଲ୍. So they are private sector. Private sector stands for business efficiency, profit motive, whereas public sector stands for people's welfare and also a business sense performance or business like performance. They want to do well economically, at the same time they also must take cognizance of the welfare content of the people. ତେଣୁ ପବ୍ଲିକ ସେକ୍ଟରର ଦାୟିତ୍ୱ ହେଉଛି କଣ? କେବଳ ଲାଭଖୋର ମନୋବୃତ୍ତି ନୁହେଁ ବରଂ ଜନମଙ୍ଗଳ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେଥିରେ ଅନ୍ତର୍ନିହିତ। କିନ୍ତୁ ପ୍ରାଇଭେଟ ସେକ୍ଟରକୁ ଆମେ ଜାଣିଛେ ସେମାନେ ସବୁବେଳେ ବିଜନେସ ଏଫିସିଏନ୍ସି ଏବଂ ପ୍ରଫିଟ ମୋଟିଭ ଏ ଦୁଇଟା ପାଇଁ କାମ କରନ୍ତି। ବିନା ପ୍ରଫିଟରେ କୌଣସି ପ୍ରାଇଭେଟ ସେକ୍ଟର କାମ କରେ ନାହିଁ। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ସୋସିଓଲୋଜିଷ୍ଟ ବା ସୋଶାଲ ସାଇଣ୍ଟିଷ୍ଟ ମାନେ এই civil society organization କୁ କହୁଛନ୍ତି କଣ ନା that is third sector because that sector is also doing a very efficient job in matters of administration. କାହିଁକି ନା ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ସେକ୍ଟର ବୋଲି କୁହାଗଲା public sector is working for the state, private sector is also working within the state, and this third sector is also working within the state. And together these three sectors, they contribute to the economy, to the polity, to the society in the country. Okay, ତେଣୁ ପ୍ରାଇଭେଟ ସେକ୍ଟର ଯଦିଓ ପ୍ରଫିଟ ପାଇଁ କାମ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ଯଦି ଆମେ ଜାଣୁଛେ ମୁକେଶ ଅମ୍ବାନୀ, ଅନିଲ ଅମ୍ବାନୀ ବା ଲକ୍ଷ୍ମୀ ମିତ୍ତଲ ବା ଆମର ରତନ ଟାଟା ବା ଯୋଉ ଜିନ୍ଦଲ, ଏମାନେ ଯଦିଓ ନିଜ ପାଇଁ କାମ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ତଥାପି ସେମାନଙ୍କର ରେଭିନ୍ୟୁର କିଛି ପୋର୍ସନ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆସୁଛି ଷ୍ଟେଟକୁ, ଆମର ଡିଫରେଣ୍ଟ ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ଆକାରରେ। ଦେ ଆର୍ ଅଲସୋ ଗିଭିଂ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟ ଟୁ ପିପଲ। ତେଣୁ ଯୋଉମାନେ ସେମାନେ ଯୋଉ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟ ଦଉଛନ୍ତି, କାହାକୁ ଦଉଛନ୍ତି? ଏଇ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ୍ସ ମାନଙ୍କୁ ଦଉଛନ୍ତି। ତେଣୁ obviously they are also helping our people in some employment opportunities, provide by providing some employment opportunities. ତେଣୁ ଯେ ଖାଲି ସେମାନେ ନିଜ ପ୍ରଫିଟ ମାରିକି ଚାଲି ଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ତା ନୁହେଁ, they are also contributing to the economy in some way or the other. ତେଣୁ ଥାର୍ଡ ସେକ୍ଟର ହେଲା କଣ? They are also working for the people in various or varieties of capacities. And you will see, or you will come to know, that there are thousands of types of organizations which are working for the development of society, for the benefit of the people in numerous ways. There are organizations which are working for the environmental protection. Some are working in the direction of, we can say, conservation of nature. Some are working in the, we can say, healthcare opportunities of the country. Some are working for educational development. Some are working in the direction of or in the respect of climate change. There are also people who are working for, we can say, gender equality or all types of, we can say, social justice. So varieties of works are there which are being performed by these organizations, and they have also played a very important role, particularly in matters of public policy making. Public policy making. That is why these organizations also need to be analyzed properly whenever we are discussing about the issue of public policy. The policy system is incomplete without consideration of the need for and contribution of civil society groups that work for the welfare and sustenance of the interests of the marginalized strata of society. And what is important is this, that such type of organizations or the so-called civil society organizations, they are predominantly working for the marginalized sections of the society. Who are the marginalized sections of the society? Who are the marginalized sections of the society? Anyone? Either Sushwabha or Shashadhar or Vijayalakshmi or anyone? Who are the marginalized sections? Let us interact so that the um, work can be little bit free from monotony. It will not be that monotonous. If it is one way communication, only I will be just uttering something and you will be sitting silent. Uh, it is somewhat not that much productive. That is why I am intermittently posing some or bringing some posers, bringing some questions so that our
Yes, sir.
engagement. Uh, so that is the
Yes,
purpose.
sir.
What
Yes,
is it?
sir. So, sir,
Uh,
I think the labor peoples, the laborers and the tribal people
the
are the
reason, yes,
ST and ST community.
okay. Perhaps some technical problem interrupts our mutual communication in between. Now, so marginalized sections means particularly those who are underprivileged,
Yes, sir.
who have been discriminated against in society for long.
Yes, sir.
Generally, we say the people belonging to the SC/ST category, or even women also, minorities also. So those who are rural folks also, So they are generally known as the underprivileged or marginalized sections of the society. And those sections of society, I have some disturbances from somebody's mic is on. Please mute it. Please mute your mic. Sushobha, Sushobha, yes. Now it is okay. So, uh, so these marginalized sections of the society, they need some extra assistance, and the state has not been able to provide the benefits or provide the hand of administration to them at the right time. That is why there is the need of the hour to uplift them, because these marginalized sections, they also constitute the Achilles heel of the state, Achilles heel of the administration. Okay, so whenever any section of the population remains far behind in matters of developmental accomplishment, that is a blot on the administration. କୌଣସି ଜନସଂଖ୍ୟାର କୌଣସି ଗୋଟେ ଭାଗ ଯଦି ବଞ୍ଚିତ ରହେ, ଯେତେକ ସବୁ ଉନ୍ନତିମୂଳକ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ ସମାହିତ ହେଉଛି ବା ଯେତେକ ଯୋଜନା ପଲିସି ସବୁ ପ୍ରଚଳିତ ହେଉଛି, ସେଥିରୁ ଯଦି ବଞ୍ଚିତ ରହନ୍ତି, ତାହେଲେ ନିଶ୍ଚିତ ଭାବରେ ସେଇଟା ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ର ପ୍ରତି ଗୋଟାଏ କଳଙ୍କ ବୋଲି କନସିଡର କରାଯାଏ ଏବଂ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରର ଦାୟିତ୍ୱ ସବୁବେଳେ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ସମାନ ନଜରରେ ଦେଖିବା। All the sections of the society must be paid equal attention whenever or as far as the question of development administration is concerned. It cannot afford to ignore any section of the society. But obviously, or at the ultimate, when we find that the society is not that much egalitarian, the gap between the rich and the poor, the affluent and the deprived is widening day by day, then that is a direct indication at the failure of the system of administration. ତେଣୁ ଯଦି କୌଣସି ଗୋଟାଏ ଗୋଷ୍ଠୀ ଦୀର୍ଘ ସମୟ ପାଇଁ କୌଣସି ପ୍ରକାର ଉନ୍ନତିମୂଳକ ପଦକ୍ଷେପରୁ ବଞ୍ଚିତ ରହିଲା, ତାହେଲେ ସେଇଟାକୁ ଗୋଟେ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରର କଳଙ୍କ ବା ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରର ଯୋଉଟା କୁହାଯିବ ଫେଲିଓର। କାହିଁକିନା ପଲିସିଟା ଠିକ ଭାବରେ ଲୋକଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ନ ପହଞ୍ଚି ପାରିବା ଦ୍ୱାରା ସେ ଲୋକ ଗୁଡ଼ିକ ବଞ୍ଚିତ ହେଇକି ରହିଗଲେ। ତେଣୁ ସେଇଟାକୁ ସୁଧାରିବା ପାଇଁ ନିଶ୍ଚିତ ଭାବରେ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ ସମ୍ପାଦନ କରିବାର ଅଛି, and that can be done by vigorous remobilization or reorganization of the activities of the state, and bureaucracy needs to come out, or bureaucracy needs to respond to such challenges in an effective manner. Besides that, it has been observed from concrete experiences that sufficient attention or sufficient measures have been taken from time to time, because after 7 decades of independence, we see definitely something has been done. The administration has done its bit or its best in order to uh, fructify the goals of development in all parts of the country. But still then, there is glaring lacuna or glaring deficiencies as far as the goal of administration, goal of development is concerned. So how that can be corrected? That can be corrected through the involvement of these civil society organizations, because public sector and private sector, they have their limitations. ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କର କିଛି ନା କିଛି ସୀମିତତା ଅଛି, ତେଣୁ ସେମାନେ ତା ବାହାରକୁ ଯାଇକି କାମ କରିପାରୁନାହାନ୍ତି ବୋଲି ଏଇ ଥାର୍ଡ ସେକ୍ଟରଟା ଉଠିଛି ବା ଥାର୍ଡ ସେକ୍ଟରଟା ଜନ୍ମ ନେଇଛି। So the role of civil society in welfare and development can be traced from the pre-independence era to the present day. So this presence of the civil society organizations has been there even before or even since the pre-independence time. ତମର ବ୍ରିଟିଶ ଟାଇମ ଠୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରିକି ଆଜି ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା এই ସିଭିଲ ସୋସାଇଟି ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ୍ସ ଗୁଡାକ ଧୀରେ ଧୀରେ ସେମାନଙ୍କର ଅନୁଭୂତି ବା ଧୀରେ ଧୀରେ ସେମାନଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରେଜେନ୍ସ they are making their presence felt. The constitution contained the usual liberal protections that make civil society possible. So, how these civil society organizations would be possible? And we can find the answer in our own constitution itself. So, that is this freedom of speech, assembly, and many other areas. Particularly, you just focus on freedom of assembly. Freedom of assembly. That means people can also form your assembly, or they can form associations for the amelioration of their grievances. So that is their mentioned. That is, it is mentioned there within the constitution, and that has given the inspiration, or that has given the instigation to the formulation of such type of organizations. So the civil society was also set by other legal provisions like the reservation of about one-fifth of the parliamentary constituencies for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes. And in the last few decades, the role of the civil society has increased substantially in the field of policy making. So, in every policy, you will see that these civil society organizations are playing a very active role both in formulation, in execution, and also in this, we can say, allocation of the facilities of the development of the benefits of administration to the different sections of society. I will give you just one example. Say, for example, different climate conferences which are now being held regularly, nationally as well as internationally. Internationally, recently we finished the COP28 Conference of Parties, so which witnessed the participation of a number of state leaders drawn from more than hundreds of countries, and it was also more actively participated by the civil society organizations drawn from different countries. Similarly, you will mark that there are civil society organizations which are working in the direction of promotion of literacy. ସାକ୍ଷରତା ଅଭିଯାନରେ କାମ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ସ୍ୱାସ୍ଥ୍ୟ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ କାମ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ଯୋଉଟାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ ଯୋଉଟା ଏନଭାଇରନମେଣ୍ଟାଲ ପ୍ରୋଟେକ୍ସନ ସେ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ କାମ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ବିଭିନ୍ନ ଉନ୍ନତିମୂଳକ yes Sushobha Rani has raised a hand. Yes,
Sir, I want to know what were the civil societies working during British rule?
during the British rule.
Yes, sir.
For example, your Brahma Samaj, Arya
Oh,
Samaj.
that's
So these societies were already formulated while the British were there, and they were performing very valuable social service activities. Okay,
okay, sir.
which, uh, these are
Thank you, sir.
some of the examples of such type of organizations which were also operating during the pre-independence period. Uh, so here now let us come to uh, analyze how these organizations have uh, played the instrumental role in uh, bringing the developmental goals or developmental administration tasks to the different sections of the society. So here, this provision of reservation here that has been also instrumental in bringing about some changes in the living conditions of the people belonging to those categories. And this reservation system also prompted some of the organizations to work for the benefit of such sections of the society. Not that only the reservation provided by the state has been instrumental, rather, some organizations which played some advocacy roles, which played some awareness roles, they have also been instrumental in taking such type of provisions or such type of opportunities, such type of openings to these people. ଓକେ ଯେମିତିକି ଏମାନଙ୍କ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରୁ କଣ ନା ଯେତେ ସୁବିଧା କରିଥିଲେ ବି ସରକାର ସୁବିଧାଟା କରିଥିଲେ ବି ସେମାନଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଯେହେତୁ ଲ୍ୟାକ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଆୱାରନେସ୍ ଶିକ୍ଷା ଦୀକ୍ଷାର ଅଭାବ ସଚେତନତାର ଅଭାବ ଏ ଯୋଗୁ କଣ ହୁଏ ନା ଗୁଡାଏ ଜିନିଷ ସେମାନେ ଜାଣିପାରି ନଥାନ୍ତି ତେଣୁ ସେମାନେ ଯେମିତି ପଛୁଆ ସେମିତି ପଛୁଆ ହେଇକି ଥାନ୍ତି କିନ୍ତୁ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ସିଭିଲ ସୋସାଇଟି ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ ଗୁଡିକ କଣ କରନ୍ତି ନା ଆଡଭୋକାସି କହିଲେ କୌଣସି ଗୋଟେ ଫ୍ୟାସିଲିଟି ସରକାର ଦ୍ୱାରା ତିଆରି କରାଯାଇଛି କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ ଫ୍ୟାସିଲିଟି ବିଷୟରେ ଲୋକ ଜାଣିନଥାନ୍ତି ତେଣୁ ଏମାନେ କଣ କରନ୍ତି ନା ସେଇଭଳିଆ ଲୋକଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଟାର୍ଗେଟ ଗ୍ରୁପ ପାଖରେ ନେଇକି ସେଟାକୁ ପହଞ୍ଚେଇ ଦିଅନ୍ତି ତେଣୁ ଲୋକ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଜାଣେ ଯେ ଆରେ ମୋ ପାଇଁ ଏଇଭଳିଆ ଗୋଟେ ସୁବିଧା ଅଛି କିନ୍ତୁ ମୁଁ ଆଭେଲ କରୁନି ତେଣୁ କଣ ହବ ନା ସେମାନେ ଆଗେଇ ଆସିବେ so these civil society organizations are actually filling this type of gap the gap between the target group and the administrative machinery. So the 10th five-year plan emphasizes the role of civil society organizations as integral partners in development. So civil society organizations are integral partners in development. And these organizations include voluntary organizations, corporate bodies, cooperatives, and trusts which are actively involved in the economic and social development of the country or of the society. So CSOs, civil society organizations, are considered the sine qua non of efficiency, effectiveness, and legitimacy. That means other name, sine qua non କହିଲେ the other name for efficiency, effectiveness, legitimacy. Legitimacy kahinki? Na they are operating within the cognizance of the state. State has also built some law and on the basis of that law they are operating within the country or they owe their creation, they owe their origin to such type of laws which have been passed by the country, by the states of the country or units of the union in different occasions in different manners. So of the government in a democracy. Uh, so these are the attributes. କଣ ନା ସିଭିଲ ସୋସାଇଟି ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ ମାନେ ଯୋଉ କାମଟା କରୁଛନ୍ତି ସେଥିରୁ ସେମାନେ ସେ କାମଟିକୁ ଏଫିସିଏଣ୍ଟଲି କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଏଫେକ୍ଟିଭ ଭାବରେ ବି କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଫଳବତୀ ଏଫିସିଏଣ୍ଟଲି କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ଏଫେକ୍ଟିଭଲି କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ସେମାନଙ୍କର ପ୍ରେଜେନ୍ସଟା ହଉଛି କଣ ନା ଲେଜିଟିମେଟ ଇଲେଜିଟିମେଟ ନୁହେଁ ଲେଜିଟିମେଟ କହିଲେ ଆଇନ ସମ୍ମତ କାହିଁକି ନା there are different acts of the parliament which deal with the creation of these type of organizations and we shall come to know about them so here we have a long history and tradition of civil society organizations or civil society engagement in political and social welfare activities. Political and social welfare. Political welfare କଣ ନା ଧରାଯାଉ ୟୁନିଭର୍ସାଲ ଆଡଲ୍ଟ ସଫରେଜ ନାଗରିକର ଦାୟିତ୍ୱ ବିଷୟରେ ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ସଚେତନ କରେଇବା ତ ଦ୍ୟାଟ ଇଜ ପଲିଟିକାଲ ସୋସିଆଲ ୱେଲଫେୟାର କଣ ନା ଧରାଯାଉ ଜଣେ କିଏ ଜାତି ପ୍ରଥା ବିରୁଦ୍ଧରେ କାମ କରୁଛି ତ ଦ୍ୟାଟ ଇଜ ସୋସିଆଲ ୱେଲଫେୟାର so the voluntary movements grew with the emergence of various religious groups and social reform movements like Brahma Samaj, Arya Samaj, Ramakrishna Mission, etc. It is to the also Mahatma Gandhi's movement for national independence was rooted in the idea of social reconstruction and social reconstruction, uh, self-help and development of poor and untouchables through voluntary effort. ଯେମିତିକି ଆମେ କହୁଥିଲେ କଣ ଗାନ୍ଧିଜୀ ଯେହେତୁ ଆମର ଗୋଟେ ସୋସିଆଲ ଷ୍ଟିଗ୍ମା ବା ସୋସିଆଲ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ଥିଲା କଣ ନା ଅନଟଚେବିଲିଟି ତେଣୁ ଗାନ୍ଧିଜୀ କହିଲେ କଣ ନା ହରିଜନ ଦେ ଆର୍ ପିପଲ ଅଫ ଗଡ ସୋ untouchability is a crime against God and man ତେଣୁ ଗାନ୍ଧିଜୀ ତ କହୁନଥିଲେ ଗାନ୍ଧିଜୀଙ୍କର ସେଇ ଇଏ ବଳରେ ଆହୁରି ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ ମଧ୍ୟ ତିଆରି ହେଲେ ଯୋଉମାନେ କି ସେଇ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ କାମ କଲେ so now the yes what Sushobha was asking she can also get another way of answer to that to her question. All India Village Industries Association 1934. All India Village Industries Association 1934. So that type of association was also existing during that time. And similarly, there was your Christian missionaries who extended relief and rehabilitation services. Christian missionaries, they were also working in different remote corners of the country for the we can say of course they had some ulterior motive in order to spread Christianity. There is no doubt about it. But apart
Yes,
from
sir. Yes, sir.
yes, but apart from that, they were also performing some beneficial or welfare activities. They were providing some healthcare facilities, or even they were also responsible for opening some schools, even though the pattern of education in such schools were of a different type. Okay, so these are the instances of, we can say, the origination or emergence of the voluntary or civil society organizations during the pre-British period, sorry, pre-independence period. Besides that, the occurrence of frequent floods, droughts, famines, or other natural calamities during the 1950s and 60s prompted massive voluntary action. Voluntary action. ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ବି ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ପୃଥିବୀର କୌଣସି ଜାଗାରେ ଯଦି ଗୋଟେ ସିଭିୟର ଆର୍ଥକ୍ୱେକ୍ ହେଲା ସାରା ପୃଥିବୀରୁ ଭଲୁଣ୍ଟାରୀ ୱାର୍କର ଯାଇକି ସେଠି ପହଞ୍ଚୁଛନ୍ତି. So this is definitely a good sign for the entire humanity. সেই voluntary activity automatically gave rise to the emergence of a number of voluntary organizations. ତେଣୁ ଭଲୁଣ୍ଟାରୀ ୱାର୍କ କରି କରି କିଛିଟା ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ ନିଜକୁ ସେଇ ଦିଗରେ ସୀମିତ ରଖିକି ଫର୍ଦର କେମିତି ଅଧିକା କାମ କରିପାରିବେ ଅଟୋମେଟିକାଲି ଆଇନ ଅନୁସାରେ ନିଜକୁ ରେଜିଷ୍ଟର କରେଇ ନେଲେ. So voluntary organizations or even non-governmental organizations, they are known by different names, different nomenclatures. Okay, so the development goals such as alleviation of poverty, illiteracy, unemployment, inequality, ignorance, environmental degradation, strengthening of national integration depend upon the active participation of people through public-private partnership. So all these activities, they were not 100% successful as far as the state intervention or state interference was concerned. କେବଳ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ର ଦ୍ୱାରା ବା ପ୍ରାଇଭେଟ ସେକ୍ଟରର କିଛିଟା ସୀମିତ ସହାୟତା ଦ୍ୱାରା ଏ କାମ ଗୁଡାକ ସୁଚାରୁ ରୂପେ ସମ୍ପାଦିତ ହୋଇପାରିଲା ନାହିଁ. କୋଉ ଗୁଡିକ ନା ପଭର୍ଟି, alleviation of poverty, କାହିଁକିନା that is also a major social problem in our country. Poverty is still rampant. more than 30-35% people are still considered as BPL in India. So this is also a shame on the state. That also is a reflection of the capability of the state. That means the state has a lot to do in the direction of alleviation of poverty. Similarly, illiteracy. Illiteracy is also still prevalent in our country, barring only Kerala and Goa. The rest of the country, there is widespread illiteracy. Even there are also ତମର ଯେତେବେଳେ ବି ଆସେ ଆସର ରିପୋର୍ଟ କଣ ତମର ଷ୍ଟେଟ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଏଡୁକେସନ ରିପୋର୍ଟ ଆନୁଆଲ ଷ୍ଟେଟ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଏଡୁକେସନ ରିପୋର୍ଟ ASER annual state of education report. Every year this report is published, and from that report a picture about the literacy position in the country is known. ସେଥିରୁ ଜଣା ପଡିଛି କଣ ନା ଆମ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରିରେ ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ ଲିଟରେଟ ବୋଲି କହୁଛେ ସେମାନେ ନାମକୁ ମାତ୍ର ତାଙ୍କୁ କୁହାଯାଉଛି ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ସୋସିଓଲୋଜିଷ୍ଟ ମାନେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଟର୍ମ ତାକୁ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଫଙ୍କସନାଲ ଲିଟରେଟ। ଫଙ୍କସନାଲ ଲିଟରେଟ କେବଳ କିଛିଟା ସୀମିତ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ ସମ୍ପାଦନ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଫଙ୍କସନାଲ ଲିଟରେଟ କଣ ନା ହଁ ମୁଁ ମୋ ନାଁ ଦସ୍ତଖତ ଜାଣିଛି ଆଉ କିଛି ମୁଁ କରିପାରେ ନ କରିପାରେ। So that is functional literate. Literacy not in true sense of the term. Okay? କାହିଁକିନା literacy କହିଲେ ଆମର ତମର apart from reading and writing, there must also be some fundamental numeracy skills, numbers. You must be cognizant about some basic calculations involving numbers, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division at, at a rudimentary stage, at an elementary stage, so that it can uh, contribute to the what is known as your potential as a human being. So illiteracy, then unemployment, inequality, ignorance, environmental degradation, in all these fields nowadays, we will find hundreds or thousands of organizations are working day and night consistently. Of course, there are some organizations which are working for some ulterior motive. Ulterior motive. ଆହୁରି ବି ଗୁଡେ criticism ବି ଆସୁଛି କଣ ନା some organizations are there only for getting some foreign funding. ଫରେନ୍ ଫଣ୍ଡିଂ ପାଇଗଲା ପରେ ତାପରେ କାମ କଣ ନା ମତେ କିଏ ଜାଣୁଛି ନା ମୁଁ କଣ କରୁଛି ସେଗୁଡା କିଏ ଦେଖୁଛି। ତେଣୁ କଣ ହଉଛି ନା ଗଭର୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ପୁଣି ନେଇ ଆସିଲା ସିଷ୍ଟମ ବ୍ଲାକ୍ ଲିଷ୍ଟିଂ ଅଫ୍ ସଚ୍ ଟାଇପ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ। ତେଣୁ ଗଭର୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ମନିଟର କରିବା ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟ କଲା ଯେହେତୁ ଏମାନଙ୍କର ଫଙ୍କସନିଂ ରେ ଅନେକ ସମୟରେ ଗୁଡାଏ କିଛି ସେଟବ୍ୟାକ୍ ଦେଖାଗଲା, ଗୁଡାଏ କିଛି ନେଗ୍ଲିଜେନ୍ସ ଦେଖାଗଲା ଏବଂ ସେମାନଙ୍କର ଅଲ୍ଟେରିୟର ମୋଟିଭ ବା ଅନ୍ତର୍ନିହିତ ଉଦ୍ଦେଶ୍ୟ ରଖିକି କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ କରିବା ଦେଖାଗଲା। ଧୀରେ ଧୀରେ ଷ୍ଟେଟ ଲ ଗୁଡାକ କଣ କରାଗଲା ନା ଟାଇଟ୍ କରିଦିଆଗଲା, ଯାହା ଫଳରେ କି ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ କିଛିଟା ରଙ୍ଗ ଡୁଇଂ କରିବାରୁ ରୋକି ହବ। So these activities, the CSOs have also emerged as an important instrument of decentralization. Decentralization. Okay. So this is also another benefit. କାହିଁକି ନା ଆମେ ଜାଣୁଛେ centralization is something which is very bad for democratic administration, and it is always desirable that decentralization of power, decentralization of administration is more for the benefit of the people. So if we want the people should get actual benefit of the administration, actual development, then there must be sufficient amount of what is known as decentralization of power or decentralization of authority. So don't confine the activities at the central government level, at the state government level, or at the local government level. Rather, you devolve some power, you delegate some power to such organizations who can also go to the doorsteps of the people, because you will find state machinery doesn't always succeed in going to the doorsteps of the people. ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଧରାଯାଉ ଏକଦମ ରିମୋଟ ଏରିଆରେ ଯୋଉମାନେ ରହୁଛନ୍ତି ସେମାନଙ୍କ ପାଖକୁ କଣ ଆଡମିନିଷ୍ଟ୍ରେସନ ଯାଇପାରୁଛି? ଯାଇପାରୁଥିଲେ ଲୋକ ଆଜି ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଖଟିଆରେ ବୁହା ହେଇକି ହସ୍ପିଟାଲ ଆସନ୍ତେ ନାହିଁ। ଲୋକ ଆଜି ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ସାଇକେଲ ଚଲେଇବା ପାଇଁ ରାସ୍ତାଟେ ପାଇବାରୁ ବଞ୍ଚିତ ହୋଇନଥାନ୍ତେ। ବୁଝୁଛି ନା ନାଇଁ? ଏମିତି ପକେଟ୍ସ ଅଛି, ଆମେ ଅନେକ ଥର ଟିଭିରେ ଦେଖୁଛେ କୋଉଠି ରାସ୍ତା ନାହିଁ, କୋଉଠି ହସ୍ପିଟାଲଟେ ନାହିଁ, କୋଉଠି ସ୍କୁଲ ନାହିଁ। So there are still such type of glaring loopholes prevalent in the country, and ଏଗୁଡାକ କଣ ହଉଛି ନା automatically, if we go for decentralization, if we go in the direction of decentralizing some power to the people, then obviously some changes can be expected. Then decentralization, how what hଉଛି debureaucratization. Debureaucratization. Bureaucratization means exercising undue control over every matters of administration. କ୍ଷମତାକୁ ସମ୍ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ରୂପେ ନିଜର କ୍ଷମତାରେ କବଳିତ କରିକି ରଖିବାଟାକୁ ବ୍ୟୁରୋକ୍ରାଟାଇଜେସନ ବୋଲି କୁହାଯାଏ। ତାର ଅପୋଜିଟଟା ହଉଛି ଡିବ୍ୟୁରୋକ୍ରାଟାଇଜେସନ। That means release almost or as many areas, as many activities from the control of the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy ଠାରୁ ଯେତେ କ୍ଷମତା ବିକେନ୍ଦ୍ରୀକରଣ କରିପାରିବ, ଯେତେ ତାର ଦାୟିତ୍ୱ ତା ହାତରୁ ନେଇକି ଅନ୍ୟକୁ ଦେଇପାରିବ, ସେତେ ସୁବିଧା ହବ। ଡିବ୍ୟୁରୋକ୍ରାଟାଇଜେସନ, ଏବଂ ସେ ଡିବ୍ୟୁରୋକ୍ରାଟାଇଜେସନ ରେ ହେଲ୍ପଫୁଲ କିଏ ହଉଛନ୍ତି ନା ଦିଜ୍ ସିଭିଲ ସୋସାଇଟି ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ। So these civic institutions or social movements, non-profit organizations, voluntary organizations, independent advocacy groups, non-governmental organizations, these are varieties of names. ତେଣୁ ଯୋଉଟାକୁ ଆମେ commonly civil society organization ବୋଲି କହୁଛେ, these are the varieties of names in which such type of organizations are present, and they are also working in different capacities. So they are known as civic institutions, social movements, non-profit organizations. କାହିଁକି ନା ୟାଙ୍କର ଗୋଟେ important identity ହଉଛି କଣ ନା important message they want to give to the society, that we are non-profit organizations. Whatever we are doing, not for profit, rather for a commitment to social service. এটা ଗୋଟେ grand campaign. ତେଣୁ ନିଜକୁ ଏକଦମ ଗୋଟେ ବଡ ଆକାରରେ ଦେଖେଇବା, ନିଜର ସମ୍ମାନକୁ ବୃଦ୍ଧି କରିବା ପାଇଁ they describe themselves as non-profit organizations. ସେମାନେ ଯାହା କାମ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ଯେତିକି ଫଣ୍ଡିଂ ପାଉଛନ୍ତି, କେବଳ ସେଇ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟରେ ସୀମିତ, ସେଇ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟରେ ନିୟୋଜିତ ବା ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ ହେଇଯାଉଛି ସବୁ। କିନ୍ତୁ ଅନେକ ସମୟରେ ବି ଆକ୍ୟୁଜେସନ୍ସ ଆସୁଛି ଯେ ଗୁଡାଏ ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ କଣ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ନା ଫଣ୍ଡସ୍ ଏମ୍ବେଜଲମେଣ୍ଟ ବା ମିସଆପ୍ରୋପ୍ରିଏସନ ଅଫ ଫଣ୍ଡସ୍ misappropriation of funds ବି ଗୁଡାଏ ଆକ୍ୟୁଜେସନ ଆସୁଛି ଗୁଡାଏ ଏନଜିଓଙ୍କ ବିରୁଦ୍ଧରେ। Okay, so the NGOs, yes, so organizations, independent advocacy groups, non-governmental organizations, these are the varieties of names which have been given to such type of organizations. Now, according to the World Bank, NGOs include charitable and religious associations that mobilize private funds for development, distribute food and family planning services, and promote community organization. So World Bank has also come out with some type of description how these organizations can be described. So, according to the World Bank, NGOs include charitable, those who are doing charity, and religious associations associated with different religions that mobilize private funds that mobilize private funds for development and distribute food, family planning services, etc. So there are varieties of services which are rendered by these organizations, and such activities definitely contribute to the benefit of society. So there are varieties of civil society organizations. Some are service oriented, some are charity oriented, some are empowerment oriented. Service oriented means they are performing or rendering some service to the target group or to the people in need. Charity, they are doing some charitable work. Okay, charitable work, for example, जोटा माने आम कहि परिबा कोन charitable work धरा जो distribution of food, distribution of medicine, বা ଯୋଉଟାକୁ ଆମେ ଅନେକ ସମୟରେ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ କଣ ନା temporary shelter by providing clothes to the needy. So these are some of the charitable activities doing charity. ତାପରେ empowerment oriented organizations. Some organizations which are devoted in the direction of empowering people, empowering the disempowered. କ୍ଷମତାହୀନ ଲୋକକୁ କିଛିଟା କ୍ଷମତାଶାଳୀ କରେଇବା. Disempowered. For example, ଯେମିତି ଆମେ କହୁଛେ women's empowerment. Women's empowerment. ତେଣୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ voting right ଦିଆଗଲା, ସେଥିରେ ଗୋଟେ empowerment ଆସିଲା. Previously, women were not getting voting right. In the past, even so, there was a move. Even further, we can also say reservation for women. That is also an empowerment initiative. Okay, so that is empowerment oriented activities, or those who are also working for the benefit of the deprived sections of the society like SCs and STs. That is also empowerment. I would have a participation oriented organization, those who are for the purpose of participating in different types of projects, and participation begins with the need for identification and it continues during the planning and implementation stages. So that is participation, participating in different social movements for the welfare or for the benefit of the people. Now, civil society organizations also have been classified uh, mostly in the, so depending on their area of business, on the area of business or the nature of business, they can be described as techno-managerial voluntary agencies. That means some organizations which are working in technical and managerial activities, that is techno-managerial voluntary agencies. Reformist voluntary agencies, those which want to work or to ensure some reforms in society. Reforms in society. ଯେମିତିକି ଆମେ କହିପାରିବା କଣ ନା social reforms. For example, to somebody working uh, in the direction of untouchability or eradication of untouchability from society. So that is reformist, or even जोटाକୁ ଆମେ କହିପାରିବା କଣ ନା ଧରା ଯୋଉ somebody working in the direction of, we can say, जोटाକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ prohibition of sati. Prohibition of sati. Practice of sati was still prevalent in India even until the 19th, 20th centuries. But after concerted effort, some reform measures, some reformers, social reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, this practice could be stopped. Similarly, radical voluntary agencies. Radical voluntary agencies organize and try to empower the exploited and mobilize them against the exploiters. So this is also another type of classification on the basis of level of operation. So how they operate on that basis also here some organizations can be known as community-based civil society organizations, those which are located within the community itself. Then there is state or city level organizations, those which are working at the state and city levels. National level, those which are quite well known at the national level. International, ଯଦି national level ରେ କହିଲେ ତାର example ସବୁର ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ଦିଆହେଇଛି. national level ରେ ଆମେ ଜାଣୁଛେ national level organization ଗୁଡେ NGOs ଅଛନ୍ତି ଯେମିତିକି ଆମେ କହୁଛେ Center for Science and Environment जोटा सुनीता नारायणଙ୍କର. So it is headed by Sunita Narayan, Center for Science and Environment. International ରେ ଆମେ କହିପାରିବା Oxfam, CARE or USAID by Greenpeace. So there are varieties of organizations which are also operating at the international level. At the international level. Now coming to focus on the roles and functions of the different civil society organizations. So first of all, they support the government plans and projects. So whenever the government devises any plan or project or policy, they are very effectively supplemented by the help provided by such type of organizations. That is why supporting the government plans and projects, government frames different plans, projects, policies, and while these plans, projects, and policies are to be implemented, these organizations they help in a significant manner for the realization of the goals of such type of we can say activities or such type of plans projects. Then facilitating communication in the planning process. Communication in the planning process. To communicate between the government and also those who are the beneficiaries, government and beneficiaries. Because it is because of the lack of communication, because of lack of communication, the advantages or the benefits of a number of schemes is not known to the people properly. And when people are unable to know about a scheme, about a policy, about a good initiative taken by the government, then obviously they remain far removed from the benefit of such type of goal, which is arrested or which is said, which is improved upon by the intervention of such organizations. So they come help as a go between. These organizations they help in the process of communication in between the beneficiaries and also the government bodies. Okay, then mobilizing local resources and initiatives for proper planning. Mobilization of local resource and initiative. These organizations they help in the process of mobilizing local resources. So, for example, suppose what are local resources? Suppose uh, there are some categories of people who are surviving on the forest produce. Forest produce. They are selling the forest produce in the local market, and whatever paltry amount of sum they get, they try to uh, carry on their livelihood with the help of that poultry income. Here, These local resources, how they can be easily harnessed. There are some organizations which are obtaining these local resources from the people and they are bringing it to the more advantaged, more well communicated places, and by that way, they are helping in the process of bringing about some change or some development in the economic condition or rehabilitation of such type of people. So the civil society actors play a crucial role in the development, especially through mobilizing local resources and initiatives. How this effort can be seen during the post-disaster phase. Suppose there is some natural disaster. How the people can be rescued, how the people can be rehabilitated. କାହିଁକି ନା ପ୍ରତି disaster phase ପରେ ଆସିଯାଏ rehabilitation ର challenge ଟା. How they will be rehabilitated or resettled and how that can be done by harnessing local resources. ତେଣୁ ଅଯଥା ସରକାର ଉପରେ ନିର୍ଭର ନ କରିକି ଆମର locally available resource କଣ ଯୋଉଟାକୁ utilize କରିକି ଆମେ ସେ disasterକୁ ବା ସେ disasterର consequenceରୁ ମୁକୁଳି ପାରିବା and also local initiative. Say local initiative means by utilizing the capabilities of the local people. So let them initiate. If they are facing the problem, then let them initiate. And by their initiative, obviously, that type of problem can be solved in a significant manner. Then advocacy for underprivileged sections. Advocacy. Just a little while before, I was mentioning or I was telling you about the role of advocacy. Most such organizations, civil society organizations, they are advocating the cause of the deprived sections because such type of people, because of so many disadvantages, are unable to uh, convey their problem to the administration, to the outer world, or to the international society. So these people they work as the advocates of such type of disadvantaged people. Advocacy. That means they will also be providing some awareness. Advocacy. For example, uh, some organization or some people within an organization are working on the issue of tribal upliftment. And for tribal upliftment, say for example, Odisha government has fixed a reservation rate of 22.5%. 22.5%. But this is only known to a very few people who are educated or who are conscious or who have actually come out of those tribal societies, those forest dwellers, and they have very slowly mingled themselves with the mainstream. ଯୋଉମାନେ କି ଧୀରେ ଧୀରେ ଆଲୋକ ଆଡକୁ ଗତି କରିକି କିଛିଟା ଫ୍ୟାସିଲିଟି ପାଇକି ନିଜକୁ ମୁଖ୍ୟ ସ୍ରୋତରେ ସାମିଲ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ସକ୍ଷମ ହେଲେଣି ସେଇମାନଙ୍କୁ ଛାଡ଼ିଦେଲେ ବାକି ଅଧିକାଂଶ ଲୋକ ସେ ବିଷୟରେ ଜାଣିପାରନ୍ତି ନାହିଁ। ତେଣୁ ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟର ଏଭଳି କିଛିଟା ସୁବିଧା ସୁଯୋଗ ଅଛି ସେଇ ଜିନିଷଟାକୁ ନେଇକି ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ଜଣେଇବା। ତେଣୁ advocacy, that is known as advocacy. So they are advocating about the different schemes, facilities, opportunities created by the laws of the state or created by the state which properly do not reach the actual beneficiaries. In that case, these organizations they are playing the role of some advocacy groups. Monitoring and evaluation of government policies. Monitoring and evaluation. This is also an important function and some organizations are there who provide technical assistance, training for monitoring and evaluation of policies. So there are many organizations which are working in those areas or working in such professionally developed areas which is of which skill or which knowledge even is not known to the people working within the public sector. So in that case, these NGOs provide technical assistance, technical assistance and training for monitoring and evaluation of policies. ତେଣୁ କାହିଁକି ନା policies need to be monitored and need to be evaluated, and this is no layman's task. Any layman cannot monitor or evaluate policy. Monitoring and evaluation of policy can be done only by skilled people, and these skilled people can be available from such type of civil society organizations. Government doesn't have adequate manpower in order to discharge all the varieties of activities. କାହିଁକି ନା monitoring ଆଉ evaluation ଟା ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ ଅଲଗା କାମ। policy issue କରିବା, policy formulate କରିବା and policy execute କରିବା government level ର କାମ। କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ policy କୁ monitor କରିବା ଏବଂ ତାକୁ evaluate କରିବା, that work or that responsibility is somebody else's. And in this respect, now such type of organizations are increasingly making their presence felt. Then facilitating development in education, training, technical assistance. Facilitating development. So different developmental schemes or developmental programs which are being declared by the government but do not reach the people, do not reach the different sections of the society. So that developmental work is performed by such type of civil society organizations. Similarly, there is also education, training and technical assistance. They are working to educate the people. They are also helping in the training of the people, and they are also giving some technical assistance to the people so that they can be properly trained, properly equipped in order to do something positive, in order to do something constructive in matters of the realization or fructification of the public policies. So government civil society interface, how there has been the mutual interaction or mutual cooperation between the two, that is government and civil society. Interface means interaction or interrelationship. So CSOs have undergone various changes in their role from charity, relief, welfare to development and empowerment. So this is the transition. ଆଗରୁ କେବଳ ହୁଏତ ଚାରିଟି ବା ୱେଲଫେୟାରରେ ଲିମିଟେଡ୍ ଥିଲା, କିନ୍ତୁ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ଆଉ ଏମ୍ପାୱାରମେଣ୍ଟ which are more important. Goals of development or tasks of development and empowerment are more important than mere charity, relief or welfare activities. And here partnerships between CSOs and government agencies have contributed to greater effectiveness in the implementation of welfare and development programs. So, whether these are welfare or development programs, they have been more successful when it has been a joint effort, when the civil society organizations and the government agencies they are working in cooperation with each other. It has been found that the result of such involvement, result of such partnership has always been more encouraging. The Union government recognized the crucial role of NGOs in the development during the sixth five-year plan. And here there are some initiatives. For example, the creation of the Council for Advancement of People's Action and Rural Technology, which was CAPAT. CAPAT was created in 1986, is an example of this strategy. So, how these NGOs and the government sector together can do some excellent work that was demonstrated through the formation of CAPAT in the year 1986. CAPAT means Council for Advancement of People's Action and Rural Technology. Similarly, there were also a number of agencies which helped in the process of, sorry, we are exceeding time, and I am sure the remaining participants, they must be getting resty, they must be getting tired. So uh, let us stop here for today. And again, let me thank you for your participation, patient participation throughout this period of 2 hours. Thank you all and wish you all the best.
Thank
Sushoba
you,
and
sir.
Sushoba and Vijayalakshmi, these two are remaining, and four or five they have already left. Thank you all.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.